I've watched a few of your podcasts actually. Today on the track because I was on the train and thought, you know what, I'll check out, especially the Robert Greene one. I wanted to check that one out again. I've watched it twice now, and I wanted to kind of pick out a few things that really stuck out for me personally.
Sure.
So the point that really stood out for me was when towards the end of the podcast he talked about vulnerability being your treasure, being your kind of magic, and I thought that was a really interesting point of view because, you know, I'm starting this mental health podcast and I want to get people talking, but I also want people to know there's boundaries to how much you can talk about your personal problems because that's your magic, you know, that's your personal magic. And if you overshare, you're only devaluing it. And I thought that was a very great point that Robert made. I wonder
Yes.
what you thought about that as well.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. And I think Robert is a very wise person. He's extremely smart, and we've resonated on a lot of topics, and that was one in particular. So when it comes to vulnerability, I think, you know, we kind of we form a shield against the world from when we're young, but you know, inside of us, you know, what's being protected by that shield is, as you said, like the treasure. It's our creativity, it's our potential, and all these other feats that we have. And yeah, I do feel like it's very important to, I guess, keep it under wraps at times. And the 48 Laws of Power is a great book to kind of teach you how to do that, and how to use essentially manipulation to kind of form a kind of veil, you know, to block people from messing with that.
Yeah.
So I actually learned that very close to the time where I did the 48 Laws of Power, where I read the 48 Laws of Power. So I had an experience with just a girl, and that is always the the villain origin story. But I opened up so much to her, like I felt anyway in my own way, but it just seemed to be shut down, and that kind of hurts. So it just kind of teaches you that, you know, all of that stuff, it shouldn't be shared so easily. But I find that it is a power to also express it as well at the right times.
Yeah.
And it can be transmuted into things like, for example, your writing or your exercise or just any creative endeavor that you go into. It can be used in that way. And life is about learning how to use that energy in productive ways.
Definitely. It's about being selective with when you choose
Yes.
to be vulnerable. Do you feel like you kind of went in too quickly with that girl and you didn't test the waters?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. And so I took things for face value, which is very, very important. It's like there was a lot of things we had in common on the surface, but, you know, there was a lot of unhealed trauma, and there was a lot of, you know, all that negative stuff that you don't see people show. Like, people aren't on the street, like, showing that. They're wearing their masks of society. It's what we're all doing. But it's very important to kind of approach things with caution, I think.
And I think it's important as well to not let rejection define how you act in future, because I think rejection can teach us to be selective, but it can also teach us that, okay, that person doesn't want my love, my affection, my attention, but that's nothing on me. That's not to say that I'm not worthy of those things, you know. And I think some guys, especially like people with big egos or people who have quite a lot of pride, they feel like, I'm going to go the other way. I'm going to put my hoodie up and I'm going to, you know, show you what you're missing. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out. I'm going to show you. I'm going to get that revenge bod. We see that a lot on TikTok.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think that's healthy because your motivations aren't coming from an authentic place. They're motivated by fear, by, you know, anger. Yeah.
So I agree so completely. There's someone on TikTok, like, especially that I actually follow, and his whole feed is just him like working out, and he's like, "Oh, I refuse to be the skinny boy that was her." You know?
Yeah.
You can see it's driven by that fear and that like almost rage and that insecurity. So I guess, you know, people like that, they transmute it in a positive way, I guess. But of course, sometimes you just have to realize where it's all coming from, and kind of let it sit with you and understand that it's okay to feel those feelings.
Yeah.
And you are perfect. Everyone is perfect the way they are, I guess.
Yeah.
So you don't have to change yourself, especially on a physical level. There's a lot of people, they try to change themselves on a physical level. For example, girls who get lip fillers, or or people who go to the gym, or just spray tan, just all that stuff. It's like it's bodily image, but I mean that's not who we are deep down. We are like infinite, and we are beyond anything physical.
Yeah, that sounds like you're on a spiritual journey there. We're just
I am very much.
We can get into that as well today, because I've been reading a few books, The Untethered Soul, The Power of Now. I feel like I'm just starting my spiritual journey. On a conscious level, I'm more conscious of the fact that I am not my name, I'm not my appearance, I am pure consciousness, I'm awareness, and that all these things that we like to, our identity isn't actually us, it's just the experience that we're having. That's who we are when we strip down our emotions, our thoughts, our traits, our identity, which it's intriguing, isn't it? Because, to someone who isn't, awoken, if you want to call it that, they think, well, that just sounds like voodoo, that sounds like rubbish, And, even now there's some resistance in me, where there's some things that I read in these spiritual books and I think to myself, okay, I want to believe you, but there's resistance because my old identity's, shouting, and it's resisting that change.
Yes. So that is a very big thing when it comes to that spiritual journey. So essentially, when you're, let's say, trying to manifest something, you have to live presently in that ideal of what you want to become. So if you want to become a millionaire, you have to feel and feel that feeling. What would it be like to be a millionaire? So everything exists at one time. There's no past, present, future in a logical sense. Of course there is, but in terms of the infinite nature of everything, we are just living in one moment forever. So there's we never steer back and forth. We're always in the present moment. So when you can feel that feeling, you just attract it naturally. So it's like if you're told all your life, oh yeah, you'll never be rich, you have to work a job, you have to go to school, you have to follow rules, and then somebody tells you, oh, you can manifest millions, you're going to have resistance is going to be a natural thing when you hear that. But I guess you just have to train yourself, and eventually the universe will give you cues as to what is true and what is not. So for example, I have before wanted to manifest something, and I'll get a lot of synchronicities that will come up, and I'll know straight away, oh, this is something I can I guess capitalize on. There'll be opportunities that come my way that I've never expected, and I'm like, okay, that's something, and it slowly builds that trust, I guess. Where you see things like that happen, and they will happen.
Yeah, what comes to mind for me when you said that was that we have a reticular activating system, which is basically, if you buy a certain car, say you buy a Fiat 500, you're going to see Fiat 500s everywhere, and it's
yes.
and it's your brain is such a powerful tool, and if you train yourself through meditation, affirmations, through changing your focus, you're going to start attracting those things without even trying. And people say affirmations, you've got to actually do the legwork, but when you change your thoughts and beliefs, your actions change, and then your actions lead to different results. And as you said there, when you embody that emotional state of feeling like a millionaire right now, your actions are going to be different. It's not just in the mind, because the mind controls your actions, and then that produces the results. So it's an emotional state, and when you feel confident and you feel you have that kind of locus of certainty, then you're going to go about your day with a different energy that's going to attract opportunities.
Also, ask formations are very good. So
I've not heard that. I've not heard them before.
yeah, so let's say you wake up and then you say, what can I do that will make me a millionaire, or
Mm.
what actions can I take today that will reinforce the belief that I'm a millionaire, and then you'll be more likely to do something that does. Yeah,
That's a good way.
it's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Do you do that?
Not as much as I should, but I have done before. Yeah,
Yeah.
like just when the idea comes to me, it's like, okay, what am I doing now? Okay, I'm eating unhealthily. Like, I'm reinforcing the fact that I'm unhealthy. So
Mm.
how can I become more healthy? And I'll
Mm.
start buying healthy food. So yeah,
Mm.
just small things here and there.
Yeah.
It works. It does work because
Mm.
then you do things.
And I do think as well, when you're truly present, and what you said, the present moment is timeless. There's no. That's
Mm,
when you tend to. That's when you're aware, and that's when you can catch yourself doing things that aren't in line with your values, like eating unhealthy food, or spending too much time on your phone, or whatever it is. And I feel like another thing I've realised is that problems don't actually exist in the present moment, and like we have a situation. For example, if you had an angry lion in front of you, and
mm,
someone would say, "Oh, you've got an angry lion in front of you trying to eat you." That's a problem, right? And on
yeah.
the surface, it is a problem. But it's a situation, and problems are things that we don't have an intention of changing. We just want to moan about it and say, "Oh, my life's unfair. I'm a victim. I can't create my own reality." And
Mm,
if we see it as a situation that we can either accept or change in the moment, then problems don't exist.
mm. That's very true. Um, a lot of the suffering that's caused in our mind is thinking about either the past
Mm.
or the future. Really and truly, like, all that exists now is you're sitting in a peaceful environment. You're talking to somebody on a, I don't know, like this amazing device that it's like there's so much beauty in the present moment that we just miss because our imagination is the one that's causing the suffering.
Mm. Yeah, and that,
And
yeah.
there's a lot of bad things that are actually good things, just in disguise. Um, just like not being able to afford something that you really want right now, but then 10 years later you'll be able to afford, let's say, anything you want. That delay has made you more grateful, so that when you do
Mm.
have it, you just feel more um, energized and thankful and grateful. Because if you had it all now, you'd most likely throw it all away because you're not at the vibrational match of that thing, you
Mm.
know, because you attract what you are. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, interesting perspectives. I like that. I'm
Thank you.
listening. I'm learning. I'm learning. I th-
That's what it is. Yeah.
I think you mentioned that you are familiar with Ryan Holiday as well, and he talks a lot about
Oh yeah.
stoicism, and stoicism's main tenet is that we're a prisoner. We can be our prisoner of our interpretations, and we worry about the future, and we dwell on the past, and Marcus Aurelius says that we're always, if we live in the present moment, suffering doesn't exist, and most of
Mm.
our suffering comes from imagining evils that haven't even occurred in the past,
Mm.
but they and we create, by having that mindset, we create misfortune. I do believe pessimism breeds misfortune, and I feel like people who do
Mm.
think in a positive way just seem to be more fortunate, and they think, oh, they're just lucky.
Mm.
No, I don't. There is a science behind positive thinking and being present.
Yes. If people who are struggling to believe that pessimism like breeds misfortune, or thinking a certain way will attract a certain thing, like they would just use the example that you used, is that when you buy a Fiat 500, you're going to notice more Fiat
Mm,
500s.
mm,
When you're a pessimist, you're going to see more things in the world that are bad as opposed to the good. And a lot of people say, like, it's blissful ignorance, being all happy
mm,
and whatever, which I guess is true, because there's always, good and bad, but good and bad are just definitions. They're just ways of seeing things that are completely, like, objective, if that makes sense. I
mm,
don't even know if that makes sense there, but something that is good, it could be just as bad for you. Like, for example, I don't know, junk food. You know, it tastes good. Oh yeah, it tastes good, but what's it doing to your body? You know, it is all subjective what good or bad is.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
And I do feel like as well, you can choose your beliefs. You can choose to believe the world is a positive place, and you can choose to believe that the world is a negative place. And there's who's to say that the world isn't a negative place, and who's to say that the world isn't a positive place? But would I rather believe in positivity and believe in positive thinking and embody that? Will that create more opportunities? Why wouldn't I be pragmatic and have that, adopt positive beliefs? A lot of people say I'm a realist, and one thing that Robert Greene said on the podcast with you, he said that he talked about realism and he talked about how that's the most effective way of thinking in his opinion. And there is I do agree with it to some degree, because if you see the world for what it is and how it appears, you have more agency in changing the world. And if you ignore something that's like, for example, if you've got a lump on your chest and you ignore it and you just think positively, I guess that won't lead to a positive outcome. So I do suppose it's a balancing act.
Yes, very true. That's always something I struggle with as well. When people tell me, be more realistic, it doesn't work for me, because I'm not a realistic person at all. And it's actually been positive for me. I think it just comes down to your personality at the end of the day. People who are more creative, who are more right-brained, will be less realistic than somebody who is left-brained and logical, and but again, it comes down to personality. We're all different in the way our minds work and how we perceive the world. So yeah, I do struggle with that, honestly. Like just like being realistic with things. But again, like I said, I think it's one of my biggest feats. It's how I got to where I got to. When I was doing TikTok, or when I started off TikTok, I said I wanted 100,000 subscribers, followers. And at the time I was like, there's no way that's going to happen. But like it did happen, and I'm at 300,000. So I exceeded my expectations. Or if I wanted to, for example, just do anything, it always seems to work out better than I expected. So I just had that philosophy of just set your goals really, really high. And if you land there, then great. And if you fall short, you still would have gone further than if you had set your goals and standards lower.
I mean, it served you, hasn't it?
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. I remember you commented on one of my TikToks saying this reminded me when I used to go on walks in the woods.
Yes.
I used to do that. Was that when you had less followers, like back in the early days?
Oh man, there's so much nostalgia when I was watching your videos, because I just thought that that this is literally like me. I'll give you a bit of backstory if you like. So
okay.
I lived in a small town, and I had like one kind of group of friends. Didn't really go outside of them. I was just unaware that I was playing a role in this friendship group. Because we were all playing characters, whether we are aware of it or not. Actors
we're all
are
actors,
probably
aren't we?
the most. Yes,
yeah.
That's right. Yeah. And the people who work and who act are the most aware of this. Like, for example, Jim Carrey. Jim Carrey is wise beyond his years, and he knows he's playing a character, and he knows, all this stuff. So, I was playing a role in that group. No matter how big or small, like I knew I was like playing a character. Well, no, I didn't know that, but it was until I went away from my friends and went away from my family a bit more, because I went to college. And I started hanging around with different people. I started challenging my beliefs, and I started like forming new characteristics, dressing differently, and listening to music. I was really just experimenting with myself, but something I would have been judged for in that friendship group before. But then I started smoking cannabis, and that drastically changed like the way I saw everything. Smoking weed in nature, especially. Because it just opened my eyes to like the vast infiniteness and beauty of nature. I remember I had the sun shining down on me, and I just felt at one within like the forest, or the woods, the unexplored territory, like I'd never ever done before. The only real connection I had to nature was when I was like playing football on the grass, for example. it's not really culturally acceptable to be walking in the forest by yourself, kind of thing, you know. Unless you're walking the dog and stuff, which I don't have. But that brings me to the point of like I used to get all these almost downloads. Like I used to be experiencing these philosophical thoughts and ideas I've never got before. So I was exploring my own psychology essentially, and started listening. I started changing the things I listened to. So I switched from watching like regular content to watching like Alan Watts lectures or Terence McKenna, you know, and all these thinkers. And it just really, I've entered a whole new world kind of thing. So I just used to write down all of these ideas I'd get in my notes on you know, on my phone. I have them all there, and I used to make them into like short style videos. So I'd like, walk through the forest and I'd like make a few videos on philosophy or spirituality, and it just brings back a lot of memories. So you know, I appreciate exactly like what you're doing as well, because it's literally the same idea I had when I started.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. It's really cool to hear such a similar story to mine in some way, and it's good to see a creator who thinks so deeply as well, because a platform like TikTok that's motivated by the algorithm and by views and likes, it's awesome to see that you're a creator who's managed to attract a big audience, but by talking about things that really matter and that's going to feed people's brains with content that will make a difference to their lives, and not just let's shake my ass or let's, you know, just piss about, you know, because you are what you consume. You're a product of what you consume. You're a product of the people you spend your time with. Your mind is like a camera that's always taking information, and how you spend your time determines how you act and who you are. So it's important. It's not just you that's becoming a better individual, more enlightened individual. The people your followers are, and you're inspiring, you know, hundreds of thousands of people. So it's for me personally, it's really good to see that actually sticks with people, and that there is an audience out there that's large enough, you know, especially someone from the UK as well.
Yes, that's another big one. There's not many UK creators doing that. So yeah, I remember when I started off, you know, it was very slow. Not really getting many views, and then I got my first 1,000 views, and I was buzzing, and it just became a whole new routine. Especially during lockdown, I didn't have much to do, and I was playing Warzone with my friends, and then afterwards I'll go for a walk in the forest. You know, it's just like, oh, amazing. So then I started, you know, getting loads of views, but the more I was doing this talking videos, the less, you know, I enjoyed doing it. It became very ritualistic, and I like novelty. And that's when I switched to book videos. Now I'm doing public videos. So like I'm staying within the niche of like self-improvement and spirituality and psychology, but I'm just branching out in different ways. So I really want to like take this even like to the next level and start doing maybe start a clothing brand, or you know, just really bringing my brand out there. And if I can be like a voice for all these ideas and these thoughts that I get that are going to benefit humanity, then I'm doing a good service, I guess.
You are, and you're 19 as well.
Yeah.
Wow. A lot of people say that, oh, you're so young, but wisdom isn't defined by age, because there's plenty of 70-year-olds who, you know, churn out ignorance.
Or asleep.
Yeah, who are asleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact you're 19, you've got all this time ahead of you. You've got a big platform already. You know, I'm sure it's going to take, you know, you're going to take on more followers and, you know, inspire more people. But I want to talk about those public videos that you do, because for me personally, I find it quite inspirational, because we've got a disconnect. Here we are. Okay.
You found it quite.
I found it inspirational because I'm someone who finds that daunting, doing something like that. You know, going up to people. And I heard in the podcast that you said you're an extrovert. So you might, you know, the difference between an introvert and extrovert, you feel energized after a conversation. I consider myself an extroverted introvert, which is a thing apparently. I've done a personality test.
I call myself that.
Yeah. Okay. Really.
100%.
Yeah. So I feel like after this conversation, to be honest, it depends who the person is as well. If I talk to someone who I'm really like inspired by, or I've had a really engaging conversation, then I will feel energized after. But sometimes I feel completely depleted. Whereas some extroverts they've got like a rechargeable battery.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, people give them energy.
But yeah, so the point was that I was going to make was, how did you overcome the anxiety and the barrier in your mind, if there was any, to go up to people in public and talk to them and ask them questions, such deep questions and profound questions?
Oh, there's no barrier. There's never been a barrier, mate. Honestly,
Really?
I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's just I'm like because I'm different. If you were to see me in public, like doing what I do, I'm completely different to what I'm like now. Like I'm more of like an excited child when I'm out.
I know.
Like,
I've
I'm
noticed.
everywhere. Yeah. So I just like I just get energized, especially in big groups of people. But at the same time, I can feel very drained. Like especially if I'm talking to like the wrong person. There are those people that just kind of drain my energy or make me feel uncomfortable. It really just depends. It really just depends. There's like so many factors that affect it. But yeah, I think it just comes from I see people as like almost a mystery to be explored. Because people, there's so much to learn about people, good or bad. So and I feel like to connect, no, to break down like social barriers and societal barriers, you have to connect with people and see their point of view, even if it challenges everything you've ever learned. There's always some value. Like there's always something you can learn from somebody. So yeah, I think it's what it comes from. I think it comes from curiosity. I'm a very curious and open-minded person, and people are, infinitely more interesting than anything. I think personally.
Yeah, and what you said about you can learn something good or bad from every single person, and it's like every man is your superior in some way. Every man or woman knows something that you don't know, and it's, as you said, it's interesting to see so many people in one day, and get to talk to that many people and just be like, what's the meaning of life? What is there a God? Is there an afterlife? You're not asking them what you're having for dinner. You're asking them very trying questions, and I think I've noticed from some of the responses, a lot of people don't think in a deep way. Some people do. Some people really do think deeply, but some people just think, when am I having a cup of tea, or what am I doing today?
Yeah, I know. They think on a very just physical level. I think they define their experience and their existence as, okay, I'm doing this thing next, I'm doing that thing next.
Yeah.
But there are people who I can see, like, when I teamed up essentially with another content creator in my area, which is Cambridge. And he does public videos, he's always doing public videos. And I met up with him, and before then I was just doing like the book videos, and we clicked straight away, so then he gave me the camera and we just filmed some like questions, and there was a bit of anxiety beforehand, but I don't remember what point I was trying to get to, but it was just something along the lines of like, I just started filming and it just felt like very natural to do. I don't actually really remember what I was trying to say.
No,
I don't remember the point.
It's interesting because I want to go back to the point where you started filming in the woods, and when you started separating from that old group. I was thinking, I've read something recently that we don't control anything. We think that we have a lot of agency. We think that we're in control of our actions, but really it's the universe controlling us. And they gave the example of a dinosaur stepping on a lake in Florida, and that lake was just solid before, and the first dinosaur stepped on the bit of land, and the lake suddenly appeared. It opened this aquifer that is now a lake in Florida, and he used that example, and he said it wasn't the dinosaur that found the lake. It was the universe controlling the dinosaur. And he gave the example of Einstein. We think that Einstein's some genius who came up with these amazing theories. But where did Einstein come up with this? It didn't just come from nowhere. Everything that's novel comes from the universe. It doesn't come from some incredible mind. It's like if I asked you, how do you breathe, Lawrence?
Mm.
You couldn't tell me. You couldn't tell me because it just happens. Our heart beats. We breathe.
Yeah, that's very true.
We don't
Very, very
have we
true.
don't have an answer for that. It just happens, and it's opened my mind up a lot recently reading that because
Mm.
it makes me realize that everything that happens, even this conversation now, wasn't. I didn't. I even though I asked you, messaged me, and I asked you, let's do it. Let's collaborate. That in my opinion that was destined just to happen because it was the energy
Yes.
wavelength that we were on. We just attracted to this conversation.
See, that's very, very good. And there are a few things I wanna say. So like when you were asking me, oh, like, how do you breathe, Lawrence? Like there are some people that would think on a very again physical level. They'll be like, and this is just an example of my old friend group. They'll be like, well, I just tell myself to breathe.
Yeah.
That's just the way they think, and whatever. Like that's just how that's their level of consciousness. It's not, and you have to like just appreciate that because if everybody was like woke and wouldn't go anywhere. We'd all just be in the street like good crazy talking and nothing would get done. There are levels to like people, and yes, the universe does work through people in different ways, and there's always so much to learn from people in that aspect. And the fact that we are 95 or whatever huge amount of percent subconscious just goes to show that there's so many unseen forces that are making us who we are. And I strongly believe this, that you are a soul or you are a spirit that has okay, so let's say the spirit is just like everything, like the infinite spirit is just everything encompassed, and it goes through all things, good and bad, physical, non-physical, and then you are a segment of that spirit, and that's made a soul, and the soul essentially is its own energy, and it chooses its path on this life. So it chooses significant events so that it can shape and can learn from. And then obviously the soul has to inhabit a body in order to have these lessons on Earth, on this like physical plane, if that makes sense. So like we are all connected to this like one universe, all this one spirit, except that we break apart from each other to like learn our own individual lessons, and then like I presume that once we learn all the things we need to learn, we'll come back together into like one source again,
Wow.
And that's a Hindu philosophy.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Where did you read about this?
Where did I read about it? I don't think I read about it. I think I watched a video on it. But yeah, it basically states that there is a source, and a source. So let's say light or love. At the beginning of the Bible, it says something like there was light or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Or let there be light. That's it. So light was born out of darkness. Let's say it's just like that conscious being. And in other, I think in Buddhism, one of the words they say is Om. Have you heard like Om?
Yeah, Om.
O-M.
Someone that
Yeah, and Om is it translates to I am. So I am just meaning like I am. So you just are. And that's a very beautiful. It's like poetic word because it just says like you are like and it's a vibration, and that's like what the universe started off as. This is like one source, this is like one vibration, this one energy, and it just separates itself into all these different aspects and this energy became a tree, it became a frog, it became and it's having its experience through all these different things, and eventually once it learns the fullest aspect of itself, especially evil, like evil is a part of us, and sometimes I'm not sure if you've ever been face to face with evil before.
I haven't been face to face, but I feel like we confront evil in ourselves as well. It's not, we do come face to face with it, but we also have to confront it in ourselves, and that's obviously what Robert Greene has talked about, our dark side, if you want to call it that. But it's
Yeah.
good. It's a good point because a lot of people argue that we're capable of evil like the Nazis, like like Stalin. We are just as capable, but we're not operating it in that context, and we can't say what we would do in that situation. And evil is not just
Exactly.
Hitler. It's not just Hitler. It's not just Stalin. It's part of all of us because we're one source.
Mm. And that's why judging is so useless.
Mm.
It's so useless to judge someone and to like hold someone accountable for your own misery, because we are all capable of doing heinous acts of crime, in under the right circumstances. Like right here sitting now, I wouldn't do anything bad, but
I was going to say I'm off. I'm off now. Don't know what you're going to do.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to reach you anyway. But yeah, given the right under the right circumstances, if someone was to break in and start stealing my stuff, like I'll probably, it's that primal self will come out, but it's within all of us, and it's something we have to learn. It's what the universe is working through us again, and that light and the darkness, the good and the bad, the right and the wrong. It's there has to be duality for there to be an experience. Is what I always like. I like that idea of like, there has to be duality for an experience to even exist, and we are the conscious awareness in between those two factors.
That's powerful. That's powerful. And I think as well, if life was amazing, there's no problems, no darkness, then there'd be no excitement, there'd be no pleasure. As you said, there's no good without the bad, And I think it's important that if we can remain conscious of that when we're going through a rough patch, then we can be grateful for every single experience, because every single experience teaches us something about life.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. It's hard to feel that when you're actually going through a tough patch,
Oh yeah, again, it's the darkness. That's the darkness. If I was having a very difficult experience right now, I wouldn't be optimistic. I wouldn't even probably be able to comprehend getting out of that situation, because it feels almost eternal. But again, like I said, it's that darkness. It's that you're shrouded in this darkness because, again, it's a part of you. It's the part of yourself that you're not shining the light on, or you're too afraid to essentially you're too afraid to go into it. So you run away from it in every single situation. For example, you wake up and the first thing you do is go on your phone. That is a subconscious impulse, and one that I've been giving into quite recently. But what is it that I'm trying to get away from? Am I trying to stimulate myself because I'm trying to avoid something in me? But eventually, what you put out into the world, it will come back to you, and there will be a time where I will have to face whatever it is that I'm running from. So because that's what it is. This experience is here to teach you.
I think that what underlies a lot of our fear and a lot of our distracting ourselves is the fear of death, whether it's on a conscious level or subconscious level. And I think to embrace life, you have to embrace death. And I think when we go on our phone, I know that sounds like that's not related to death or anything, but going out, and there's always risks involved with everything in life, whether we know it or not. Going outside every day, there's risks that involved with that. There's risks, having a conversation from an emotional point of view. And I think that if we can be conscious of our fears, bring it to the forefront, and actually look our fears into the eye instead of avoiding, because we all do avoiding behaviours. But the problem with avoiding behaviours is that means the river gets wider, and then when you have to cross that fear down the line, it's a harder, crossing, because you haven't snipped it when it was a small little, tributary,
Yeah. That's a good analogy.
And I think that distraction, a lot of people say, I'm just bored. I think boredom is caused by fear, a lot of it. A lot of it is
fear of the unknown.
Fear of the unknown, yeah. That's why a lot of people watch the same series over and over again on Netflix, because it's predictable.
Yeah, that's very true. Um, yeah, that's a very good point. People don't like to be confronted with something that they're not aware of. And yeah, that drives most of the sleepers. It's that fear of the unknown. Sometimes, you know, um, that's why religion is in place.
Mm.
Again, because I can't judge people who are religious because I've been religious before.
What
And I
religion?
can't judge people who Christianity more
Christianity,
so.
yeah.
Yeah. But I never believed in. I just couldn't, because I've always questioned stuff. I couldn't wrap my head around, like Jesus died for us on the cross, and
Mm.
Adam and Eve, the story. Like, it was just too much for me. And the idea of hell used to scare me as well. Like going to hell, or we're all destined for hell unless we do this. It didn't sit right with me. So I went for a lot of like suffering in my mind, trying to work out what it all meant. Um, but then the moment I found out, like in my own mind, like I came to the realization that most of the things in the Bible or Jesus itself, it's like they're all metaphorical.
Mm.
So it's because humans, and like the way it's evolved, like with self awareness and language and our understanding of the world, we were very metaphorical in the words that we use and the points we're trying to get across. We've used a lot of analogies and metaphors in this conversation alone, and it's you're picturing them as they're happening.
Yeah.
And that's how it's through pictures and stories is how we learn. So, for example, I'd say the story of Adam and Eve. I'm pretty sure there wasn't two people who ate from an apple, and then they were like kicked out of the Garden of Eden or whatever. Like I would think of it as, and this is obviously my own personal
Mm.
belief and opinion. I would think of it as it's a metaphor for the fall of grace.
Mm.
So I believe that we were all like I say light beings, conscious, aware. We were just like living in a state of bliss essentially. But in order for us to learn more about our unconscious, we had to come to face with evil. And hence being the analogy of the snake,
Mm.
or temptation as the
Mm.
snake. The snake would represent. It's all these different analogies that I think are there, or Jesus, himself being an analogy for the human being. He was just another awakened mystic that found that light of God within himself, like the Buddha or like Krishna. You know, all of these figures that are teaching us a lesson, and we're all capable of experiencing that enlightenment within us.
Mm.
It's a path of self discovery, I think, and self actualization.
I think there's some lessons to be learnt from the Bible, though, if you don't take it literally. I mean, the
Yes.
anatomy of, well, the snake coming into the walled garden is for me, it seems that I interpret that to mean that there's always suffering in life. Even in
Mm,
paradise, there's this snake that's causing problems, and there's always going to be a
yeah.
degree of suffering in your life, and it's how you respond that matters. That's my interpretation of it, and I think the
Mm,
Bible. I grew up an atheist, but it's funny because I've kind of gone the other way.
mm,
I've not become a theist, but I've become agnostic, and I've started to question. I do believe there's a higher power, whether that's the universe, whether that's God, I don't know.
mm,
But my parents have the view that no, everything's mechanical. When we die, and that's it. But I don't believe that, and that caused me a lot of suffering emotionally because
mm,
that it can't. For me, when I went to university and I started to see other people's different perspectives and I started to do a lot of soul searching anyway. Who am I? What do I stand for? What happens after I die? All those questions. That caused me a lot of problems, and I think I ended up going to the Christian union events just to see their point of view. And I went on the student union podcast as well, and had a
oh,
debate with
nice.
someone who's a theist. And I said, well, there's no God, all this stuff. But it
Mm,
did open my eyes to a few concepts, and I do believe there's a higher power, and I believe it's the universe, the energy source, whatever you want to call it.
hmm Yeah. Oh, yeah. 100%. I've come to terms with that as well. There's no doubt in my mind that there is a higher power orchestrating. everything. Um, I just don't see. Again, it comes down to the law. I think there's a law of physics or whatever. It's like for there to be a cause, no, for there to be an effect, there has to be a cause.
Mm.
I mean, that just says it all. You know, it has to be a cause. Like, where did the cause come from? And even the fact that there are laws of the universe, like laws of gravity, like who put the laws there? You know, they didn't just exist out of thin air. Someone had to place the laws, just like humans put laws in society.
Who started the Big Bang?
Yeah.
That's the classic, isn't it? Like,
Of course.
yeah.
So I do strongly believe, and I think there's a lot of evidence for God, and just through personal experience. And there's also this quote I read, this little excerpt I wrote, and it was like, you know, when you're spiritually awakened, or when you have that awakening experience, no one can rob that from you. You know, it will never be taken away. It will always be there, and I have so much proof, you know, in just being that there's something higher that exists, and there is that light that is guiding us towards a certain path in our life. So I do strongly believe that, but a lot of people might see the opposite, and that's completely fine, because I have before. You know, I've been in that space. It's just about guiding people through that. And just to finish off that point about guiding people, when I started off doing spiritual TikTok, I came with the mission to not talk about spirituality in the terms of like, oh yeah, let's raise your vibrations, and use all this terminology, right? I didn't want to scare people away. You know, I wanted to actually, if you're going to be talking about something like that, you want to wake the people up who don't understand it. So I put it in very simplistic terms. So my first series was explaining spiritual terms in plain and simple English. You know, that just draws people in to the idea of, okay, right, let me try and understand this a bit more, instead of trying to gatekeep it. So yeah, I think guiding people starts off with small steps. Handing somebody a note, you know, doesn't have to be spiritual. It can just be kind.
Yeah.
And then that shows, okay, people are nice. And then it starts challenging their beliefs or whatever they thought before. If they're having a bad day, you know, they see something nice. Okay, maybe goodness does exist in the worst of moments. And that can plant a seed that will change someone's life forever. I don't know the extent of what I've done. It's like 330,000 people. Plus like 4 million likes I've got, and like other comments. You know, I could have really impacted someone's life, but I don't know that. You know,
and it's the butterfly effect. It's the butterfly effect that you're talking about on the podcast too.
Yes.
It's you can't quantify how much of an influence you've had, but as long as you know deep down that you feel like you have, that's all that matters. And it doesn't. I don't think it matters with numbers as well. Okay, it's quite flattering to hear that but if you've changed someone's life profoundly and it's stopped them from, you know, let's say committing suicide, or they've started on a spiritual journey where they see the world in a completely different way, and they have less, they're not suffering as much, then that's amazing. And I'm sure you would have impacted tens of, you know, if not, you know, tens of thousands of people in that way. You know. Yeah. So, but yeah, I want to talk to you about weirdness. I want to talk to you I want to talk about weirdness, because I noticed just from listening to you a bit and talking to you right now is that you've always felt like sometimes alone, sometimes feeling like otherness, you know, from other people. And I the reason I bring it up is because I felt like that a lot. You know, I felt like, why do I think about existentialism? Why do I worry about things that people aren't that concerned about? People are concerned about getting drinks and, you know, getting pissed. And I think I want to hear your perspective on embracing your weirdness, like just being able to be truly you, especially in a public setting, especially when you're interviewing people, because it comes through. I see you and I think, wow, okay, you're being authentic. I can tell you're being yourself, which is awesome. You embody it.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
How do I do it? I'm a very stubborn, very, very stubborn person. Especially when I'm told no. I really don't like taking no for an answer, especially if I know it's for my own good. So I guess it started off like, I just had a very bright personality, and I think the world does everything it can to dim that light. But I'm very, very stubborn. So, you know, I used to be disciplined a lot with my dad, especially, like, you know, and he used to be very strict. So I used to be really like serious like around him, and I used to be like doing my work, and that's how I got into like books and reading and all that stuff, right? The knowledge side of things. So I'm very serious when it comes to that. But then as soon as he was out the door, as soon as I was at school, all that repressed stuff will happen. I'd be screaming around my friends, running around playing football, just like saying obnoxious, weird things, making weird noises. I still do it now.
Go on, let's hear a weird
like,
noise.
Oh no, I can't. No, I'm not in that mood. I'm in the serious work mood. Yeah, but you will see it soon. Don't worry. Yeah, I just like even in town, like I'm with Josh and George, both my friends, and George is somebody who he doesn't wear shoes. He's been barefoot for like 7 months.
Wait, seriously?
Which is yes, yeah, and there's a lot of benefits when it comes to it. Of course, it's like aligning your energy with the earth center and that stuff. And then Josh himself, he's quite a weirdo as well. But when we're together, it's like different kind of energy, and we piss a lot of people off. Either intentionally or unintentionally. Like people don't like it because it challenges their beliefs on such a deep level. It's like subconsciously, okay, they get angry, right? On the surface level, they're getting angry, but subconsciously, what they're thinking is, oh, I've been lied to. I've been told that I had to be serious. I had to shut up when I'm told to. Why are they not doing it? Why are they not following what I've been told? Kind of thing. So but so how do I just become weird? It's just from being stubborn and wanting to express my like inner child. And I don't really care who's there in the room with me. When I'm doing it. I think just embracing like your authenticity. And for people, I think I want to speak to the people who don't have that anymore, or they feel like they don't have it.
Yeah,
like you do. You just have to rediscover it. Just ask yourself the question, and even if you don't know consciously, you will find it. Like ask yourself, what did I enjoy doing when I was a kid, or what brought me joy when I was a kid? And for me, it was play. I love just playing and being imaginative. I used to like have Power Ranger figures, and I used to like talk to each of them, and I used to do fights and stuff. And I used to set things up in my room.
I've lost you. I'm not sure if you know.
Yes. I was just talking about play fighting with toys. But yeah, what have you lost in the midst of all this societal pressure and opinions and people telling you, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. What have you lost, and how can you rediscover it? I think that would be it. So I've rediscovered it from just being a creative, from being a creator, creating content, and just sitting with myself as well for a very long time, like trying to rediscover different parts of myself. It's very important. And psychedelics as well. Really
psychedelics.
Yes.
Well, I just...
Yeah,
Sorry, I'll go on.
Yeah, that was it. Psychedelics are great, and I recommend everyone try them.
Okay, well, I've never tried psychedelics, so I guess you could recommend it to me. I've smoked a fair amount of weed and I've done edibles, but I've never done psychedelics or anything else. Yeah.
Wow. Would you care for me to explain?
Yes. Can I actually, before you explain, I'll just say why I haven't tried them yet.
Oh, please, yeah.
So I suppose for me personally, I smoked a fair amount of weed at university, and I had some good times. I had times where, like you spoke about, when you were in the woods and you were in awe of the amazing kind of nature. And I remember sitting on a bit of I think it was like a log, and just looking at the trees with my friend, thinking, "Oh my God, it's broccoli!" Just like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Wow, this is amazing. I feel like I'm having an out-of-body experience, but in a positive way. And then I've had times where I've felt absolutely horrific and I've freaked out. I feel like I've had bouts of psychosis, which have triggered a lot of anxiety. And the reason I never tried mushrooms or LSD or whatever you've tried is because I'm afraid that that's going to be the same reaction.
Okay, I see. So I would say, because I don't really fear much. I don't really have much fear when I'm going into things. So I would say, again, that's like, again, your mind is like setting a kind of barrier, but that's completely fine, because you don't want to do anything that's going to you don't want to go outside yourself to do something you don't want to do. But for me, weed was like a good starting point. It should be everyone's starting point, in my opinion. It increased my perspective a lot. And then I wanted to try mushrooms, but then LSD came along. My friend had LSD, and I heard a lot about Steve Jobs doing it, and so I took LSD, and I just remember like it just hits me, like it hits you all at once, and you don't feel the same. You don't feel like the same person, because you can't be the same person when your ego's not there. You are just living a pure experience. So you're looking at your hands for say, which people don't really just like stop in the day to just look at their hands, but you realize how alive you are, right? That's one thing. You come to terms with your existence, like, and then especially when you're doing it in a natural setting, you realize like the nature and the connectedness as well. You start seeing parallels between the patterns in your hands and like the patterns in the leaves, and man, it's the most ecstatic experience ever, because you feel like you're connected to everything, and everything is so vibrant and alive. It's amazing. So LSD is great. I have had a bad experience with LSD, but it's all to do with setting.
Is it with the people you're with, and also just the environment? Yeah,
100%. If it's an environment you're not familiar with and there's people you don't know, it could just be very intimidating. Because it's just so, wow, everything is like heightened 100%, 1000% even. But I'd say if you were to get onto a psychedelic, the next one you should definitely try mushrooms. I think, and this is one of my strongest beliefs, every single person should try mushrooms. Every human being. If they haven't had a mushroom experience, they're missing out on one of the most life-changing experiences they could ever have, because mushrooms themselves are alive. They've existed way before humans have. They have so much wisdom in them. They've been here, forever, and they've been through the dinosaurs and all these like different, they've got all these experiences in them. So when you take them, and when I took them, it almost unlocked like this bundle of joy and this light within me. I can feel it as well. It's just so incredible, because it's not just a mental thing as well. It's that you can feel it in your gut and you can feel it in your heart, and just like you become open to everything, and you feel how vulnerable you are, and you can also feel like all of your emotions that you've been repressing.
Wow.
You're just aware of everything on a very, very deep unconscious level. Yeah, it's really good.
That sounds quite amazing. I think I've heard.
It's amazing.
I've heard a lot of people say microdose and get yourself into it through that. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, that's a good way to get into it. Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Maybe not tonight, but maybe I'll go find. You can actually pluck them near me. There's a hill where they grow them, like magic mushrooms.
Oh wow!
There was a funny story. There was a guy who I went to a house party and he said, "I'm really broke," and I said, "Okay." Well, he said, I went to bargain booze, but I realised I didn't have enough money, and I was like, "Okay." He ended up going and finding mushrooms because he couldn't afford beer.
That's jokes. Did he try it?
Yeah. I mean, he did them before, but that was his. If he didn't have enough money that week, he'd go and get mushrooms instead of alcohol.
Pick shrooms. Wow.
I was just like, for me, I was like 17 at the time, so for me that was quite like, trivial.
Yeah. I remember I was obsessed with like mushrooms. I just used to walk through and like pick loads of random ones. I did eat one or two, but I was scared that I didn't know if they were poisonous or not.
Yeah. You got to be careful, haven't you?
Very, very careful.
Okay, well, I've got a few more points that I want to cover. I want to. Your favourite law. I've actually got the power book here. Here it is. I used to hide it under my drawers, or in my drawers, because I was worried that other people would think I'm a manipulative person. When I bought it like 2 years ago, I was like, I know some secrets that no one else knows, right? I've got the keys to this other way of being. No one's going to know that I have this in my arsenal. Because another guy was into Robert Greene, and I was thinking he can't know that I know his secrets. I can use them to my defence. But You talked to your favourite law was reinventing yourself.
100%.
And I want to get into that because for the people watching this, who are going to be watching this podcast, who feel stuck, who feel like, and as you said, it goes back to this not being able to connect to their inner child because they've had to like repress a lot of who they are because they're worried about what people think about them, or maybe they were bullied, or maybe that they felt like they didn't fit in, so they had to change the way they did because in order to fit in. How would you? What would you? What would your? Because you're someone who's clearly reinvented yourself a few times. What would you say to someone who's struggling to reinvent themselves, step into that new version of themselves, become a different person?
So I would say forget everything you've been told by everyone, and just sit with yourself for, depends on how long, just until you feel like you physically can't sit with yourself anymore. And then like wonder why is it that you can't sit with yourself? Maybe you're replaying something. Like this is for me. I find that I replay things in my head so much, and then I keep, and I'm quite imaginative when I'm doing it because I'm trying to change the roles, and I'm trying to like think of how I could deal with it differently, and so I'm holding on subconsciously. I'm holding on to the past. Yeah, so find out how you're holding on to the past, and like just say to yourself like, okay, I let it go, and I only allow what is going to be for my greatest good. And that's a great affirmation to use. And then that way you can just start, that's the groundwork. And then you can just start figuring out what it is again with what you found, good as a child. So I wouldn't even say it's more like reinventing yourself, because like rediscovering yourself. I think that's really what it is. And then find ways to be creative with it. So how can you, use that energy into different creative arts and different creative endeavors. So yeah, I don't know. I think it just comes down to just sitting with yourself and figuring out what it is you've lost.
How do you stop caring about other people's opinions? Because that's a big block for some people.
That's actually a very difficult question. I couldn't know, because I think it's something that I'm just so used to, because I genuinely don't care. I think I've been forced to not care because I've had life experiences that have like made me realize like I don't care. I think it just comes down to separating your mind from your heart, or your mind from your gut, because they all work in different ways. I think the mind is programmed by society. You go to school and you're told who you are and what you can do, but like the gut and the heart are untouched. So if you can open your heart and listen to your gut, then you'll be able to like kind of recenter who you are. And then when people are telling you this and that, it's like your mind just naturally rejects it, because you feel this like sense of groundedness within yourself. I know that was very long. That was a long tangent, but yeah, I think that's what it comes down to.
I think it's interesting what you said about the gut as well, because one thing I've learned in the past few years is that the mind and the body are very connected, and that a lot of our discomfort manifests in the body, and that our stomach is what produces, I think it's 90% of our serotonin, which is crazy. And that's why obviously gut health is so important. What you eat is really important. But a lot of our trauma and a lot of our wounds are not in our minds. We feel them in our body, and that's why we get tight chest, or that's why we feel nauseous when someone's triggered us. And I think if you can somehow ground yourself and reconnect with your body, and you feel, that's how you kind of get comfortable again. And then your mind is always, as you said, telling yourself these narratives about yourself. And I think it's important to catch yourself telling yourself a negative story about yourself. Like, why do I have this belief about myself? Right, get it down. I think that's where journaling comes in as well. Journal that. Highlight, actually, that's not true. I do add value. I'm not this person that my mind's telling me I am. Because, as you said, we have 95% of our thoughts are the same every day, because they're subconscious. Until we make the subconscious conscious, we can't change them.
That's very true.
Yeah, and I think that's why people get stuck.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I just got a thought as well just now. It's like if there was one thing, because in answer to your question, that anybody like who's watching this video when it's uploaded um, can take away is to I've literally forgotten.
Bam.
Oh my god.
Bam.
That's it.
Boom.
Cliffhanger and then just yeah. It will come back to me.
Is that one of the laws of power to be mystical or something?
Yeah. Something like
Say
that.
less than necessary.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't say anything.
Give away. Yeah, exactly. Just,
Man, well, maybe it'll come back.
oh, it will. No,
How long have we been on an hour? Do you mind if we do another 10 minutes?
Oh, of course.
Awesome. So...
That's quite funny.
That was funny, man. Hopefully it comes back. It might come back. I'm going to ask you some questions that you ask your the people in the public. Just quick.
Thank you. That's
just quick fire. Yeah, because I was thinking Lawrence doesn't get a go.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's brilliant.
So, what quote do you live by?
Oh wow, this is amazing. Okay. So you can do anything that you put your mind to. It's very cliche, but it is so true, and people don't understand how true that is. You can do and you can achieve anything that you put your mind to. No matter how many negative thoughts you get, it cannot impact like you getting that thing. And if you think about the people who failed in doing so, it's because they didn't put their mind to it as much as they could have done. There's like always that resistance. So yeah, you can do anything you put your mind to. Absolutely anything.
Love it. Awesome.
Yeah.
Are you happy?
Yeah.
That's
a
awesome.
very nice question.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, very happy.
How do you improve your mental health?
Meditation. And thank you, because I've just realised what I was going to say. So
Let's go. Can we? What? Yeah. What was the question again? If you could take anything from this call.
Yeah, if you could take anything from this video, it would be you don't have to work as hard as you think to bring yourself out of depression or bring yourself out of anxiety. It really does not require much effort at all. If you can't physically, I've been in this situation, if you can't physically get out of bed, or you don't want to get out of bed, or you don't want to even like be alive, or you don't want to be yourself, right? You don't have to work as hard as you think to get out of that situation. All it starts with is a habit, building a habit. And you can build the habit of conscious breathing. And this is what I practice all the time, is remaining conscious of my breath. And it has changed everything. Because you can do that in your bed, you can do that anywhere, just by like being conscious of your breath. And it feels weird at first, but you access like so much subconscious, because again, it's like when you breathe, you're not aware of it. I bet you probably weren't aware of it before I started talking.
I'm not.
Yeah. So that's right. So when you start manually breathing, it's like you are exerting control on yourself again, or within yourself again. So you're in control of your being, and then you start becoming like your vision also widens. So your peripheral widens even. You go into that state of readiness and awareness for the day. So yeah, it really helps. I think conscious breathing, and even like if you want to do yoga, you can do yoga in bed. You can do push-ups in bed. You literally can do anything you want in bed. So yeah, just slowly build that habit, and then once you find that willpower, you can then move on to bigger things and take on bigger challenges.
Wow. So keep it simple. Start with habits. I mean, have you read the Atomic Habits book?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 4 laws is make it attractive.
Mm-hmm.
What's the other ones?
Oh, good question.
Make it rewarding.
Habits compound. So like 1% better every day means 37% better for the year.
So that's the point that you made, is that you don't need to shift your life radically. You can just make small adjustments that will have a compounding effect on your mental health, like stretching in bed or breathing consciously.
Yes, so true. Like when I was trying to get out of whatever headspace I was in, I remember I used to wake up set my alarm, wake up 5 a.m., do this amount of push-ups. If I don't do this amount of push-ups, then bad me, you know. Get into the shower, put like freezing cold water on. It was like almost like I was torturing myself, you know. Like that's how it is. And some people like they exist on that level. You know, people work really, really hard, but that's just again how they do. So if you feel like you have to work hard to get out of these situations, you really don't.
Awesome. I love that perspective.
Yeah. Thank you.
So we've got some more questions that you've been asking the public.
Nice.
So, what message do you want to give to the world, or what's one message you leave for the world?
I think it would be that. I think it would just be that it's a lot simpler. Life is a lot simpler than you think. Everything outside of you is not as true as you'd like it to be, because you are seeing it with your own kind of perception. You don't see things exactly for what they are. You don't know how that person got that BMW. You don't know how that person's famous. You don't know what they've done behind the scenes. You don't know what kind of like mental pain they're going through. People have to pay a price for who they are, and nothing is as it seems. So it would just be like, find that joy within yourself, and then just cultivate that as much as you can, and then you've literally won at life. And at the same time, we have literally won the lottery. The chances of being born is 1 in 300 trillion. That's a huge number. 300 trillion. There's less chance of winning, or there's higher chance of winning the lottery. So I think there are certain like miracles of life that go so unnoticed, and just meditate on them and cultivate that space within you.
Gratitude. Take gratitude from that. And that's so true. You don't see people's struggles. You might see on social media, there's 0.001% of their life, and it's all it's the best part of their life, and it's all concentrated, and you're seeing it out of your perception. Like, we see the world not for it as it is, like you said. We don't see a mountain just for being a mountain. We see it with all our perceptions and our images and interpretations attached to that object. And it's the same when we look at other people and we compare ourselves to other people. So I think it's important to have that in mind and to take gratitude in your own life. And even if you've got a shit life and you're not enjoying life at the moment, I'm sure a lot of people are not enjoying their life and they're not on the right track. You've won the lottery. You've already won. And when you have, I do, from my perspective, when I appreciate what I already have, what I've already secured in the bag, life itself, for example, but also the things like a roof over my head, I do something I love every day. I'm blessed for that. I attract more blessings when I appreciate it.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of being grateful. The more your gratitude you do, and meditation, journaling complements that, or it facilitates that, then you'll attract more, and then blessings will be everywhere. There's an infinite amount of blessings then.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Okay, let's get to the next question. Ooh, heavy. These are heavy, man. I don't know how you ask people these questions.
I don't know either.
What gives you meaning in life?
What gives me meaning? I'll say God. And, again, when I say that word, there's going to be a bunch of different perceptions of what God actually means or God is. I don't even know what God is. I can't perceive. I don't think any human mind can. But I do know the qualities associated with God, like love, joy, peace, meaning, purpose. All these words I attribute to God. So yeah, it would be God.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, Yeah, so this is important. This is important for me because a lot of my audience are people who struggle with anxiety, and I think when I was at my worst and I was struggling to just do day-to-day things, I wanted someone to really shake me out of that and give me some advice that cut through to me. And because I'm grateful that I'm not in that position now, what advice would you give to someone who's had a breakdown, completely broken down, and they're lost and they don't know how, they're not in control of their mind, they're at the mercy of their mind? What would you say to those people who are in that horrible situation?
Yeah, it's very, very, very deep. I guess I would say that you are not the mind, which probably make a breakdown even worse.
They're not in that position, man. They're not ready. You're sick. You're gonna make it worse, bro.
Yeah, oh God. But yes, you're the observer of all these things happening, and that conscious awareness that you are is capable of so much. It's the most malleable tool the universe has. So you are at the mercy of your mind because you have given power to your mind. You can choose what you give power to. So yeah, I would say again, just cultivate peace, cultivate stillness, and do that by just affirmations. Just say, okay, I am at peace, or I am peaceful, I am loved, I am joyous, I am grateful. And you're going to experience resistance as anything. You didn't learn how to walk straight away, did you? You had to crawl first, then you have to walk. And you still probably fall down now. Nothing's ever just a straight line. So you will lose control at points. But yeah, just return to that, whatever affirmation it is, whatever thing that you that works for you. Just keep returning to that and use it as a foundation, I'd say.
Awesome, man. I love that. I think all I could add to that point is that what you said about you can control your focus and you are not the mind. And that for me is that something I've learned very recently. It's that we're the awareness, and that's our awareness is the subject, and that the objects of the mind are, the ego, our emotions, our thoughts, and we view those things as part of us when they're actually not part of us. And I think if we hear that in a roommate, the thing that's saying all those negative thoughts, the things that are making you feel anxious or depressed, they're telling you things about yourself, if you can see them as separate from you, as not who you truly are, because you're infinite love and peace and all those things, then I feel like, because people identify with their demons, when in reality they're not their demons. They're not. It's a separate object. That's why we can see them. We can see our thoughts and emotions because they're separate from us. We can't see something that's part of us.
Man, that's so true. So my awakening happened, and if I remember correctly, it happened when I was seeing all these thoughts going around in my head, and especially when you're stoned, when you're high, so everything is so heightened.
Yeah.
Isn't it? So I was seeing all these thoughts going through my head, love is the most powerful force in the universe, and all these different random things. And I was like, if I'm aware of these thoughts, it's what came through me. If I'm aware of these thoughts, then who's the thinker? And that completely shot me into oblivion. Literally, you can feel it now, can't you?
It's
baby, who's the thinker? Yeah, I know. It was just an amazing. So I remember I opened my eyes, and I was brought into this space of just infiniteness, just vast. Just it's almost miraculous, how big life is. On such a wow. It's honestly there's no words for it. There's honestly no words for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I can't say anything else. I think that's the perfect ending.
Yeah.